So here we are again with Michael Harney and Our Voices, Our Stories. And Michael, before we left off here and we said we're going to come back, I wanted to talk about, I always love it, the Rubber Man.
The Rubber Man.
I always love how you get those names for different things. But you are so involved in this community through your outreach work now. And you have become a legend in this community for doing that. And you visit all the bars. And I'd just like to know what's that experience like? I mean, because I'm sure when you walk in and people seeing you carrying a bag of condoms, everybody's kind of interested. Well, who's he and what's that all about?
Interesting.
How did you get into that?
Well, after break, I just switched my seating here, so I put my leg to the other side here. So as I said previously, Marty Prairie was my boss, and so this was 1993, and the street outreach, and that's very different nowadays too.
Yeah.
So we had an area downtown called the Cage, and it is now that area that everybody knows as the Grove Arcade. It's a very fancy kind of upscale, some $1 million apartments and hotels and restaurants and shops. Well, that was the federal building in the early 90s before they built a new federal building that now is over there by Grove Street. And so at 5:01, after the federal building closed, it became a public sex environment for men meeting men.
Wow.
Until 6:59 in the morning. And at 7 o'clock, it became the federal building again. And so that's where Marty took me and wanted the outreach done. And so I presented myself as a hustler, and I have some friends that still tease me about this. They're like, you just observed, didn't you? That's all you ever did, right? But Marty had 3 rules. I had to stay in the light. I was not allowed to get in anybody's car, and nobody was allowed to get in mine, my pickup truck. Those are the only 3 rules. Otherwise, I was supposed to try and meet the guys that were out there driving around, and it was a very sociable environment. Oh, I loved it. Though I was socialized at Gold's Gym, this was a different socialization in the gay community.
Yeah.
Or men who had sex with other men but may not have identified as gay or bisexual.
Gotcha.
Okay?
Right.
So, and they came from out of the woods sometimes, from the far-reaching, rural communities. Yeah. And so I stood on the street. I always had a book, and I always had this bag. People would remember my plastic bags that looked like grocery bags from whatever your grocery store is. And inside the bag were my condoms. I had a demonstrator. You'd call it a dildo, but I called it a demonstrator. I had other literature. I had some STI picture books and things like that, just stuff, resources. And my job was to try and get the guys driving around to stop and take 2 condoms. At the time, I was only allowed to give you 2 condoms, and we only had one style. They were the Lifestyles Ultra Lubed condom, and that was it.
Why were you only could give 2?
That was all I was allowed. The state gave us a certain amount, allotted us a certain amount of condoms, and I was allowed to offer you 2 condoms. That was it. You could loop around again, and maybe I'll give you 2 more, but 2 per person at the time. And so the kind of sideline is that we have about 40 places where we drop off condoms around town nowadays, and our highest year was about 187,000 condoms in that year. We're down to about 140 or so thousand now for a lot of different reasons. But back then, I carried those in this bag, and people used to always want to give me, can I get you a nice leather bag, or can I get you a nice, canvas bag? And I said, hell no. I said, I don't want somebody jumping me for that bag.
Oh, yeah.
I just look like somebody living on the street, walking on the street with a plastic grocery bag. And so it was a protectionary kind of thing that I had. But I would stand on the corner, up against the corner, and I would be reading my book in the light. And some guy would drive by, and the window might come down, and, you want to get in, you want to date. And I'd say, no, but I'm Michael. I'm from the Western North Carolina AIDS Project. I've got some condoms. Do you want any of these condoms? As they drove off, and, or I would pretend like I, needed a cigarette. Can I get a cigarette?
Okay.
Or what time is it? What time is it? And they would stop.
Okay.
And I think part of, it's very nice that you say I'm a legend or whatever, but it was the consistency. I would be out there 4 or 5 nights a week, whether it was cold in the middle of winter, whether it's blazing hot. It would be from anywhere, 8 o'clock at night until maybe 2 or 3 in the morning. The city was lively.
Huh.
There's a whole nother nightlife there. And so it was just a wonderful experience. Over the years, I met so many people. Once they got to know that I, first of all, was not one of the hustlers, because we had a great hustler community out there. If you don't know much about that, or anybody doesn't know what that is, these were the guys that were, offering up a little sex action for a couple of dollars, a couple of drinks. And that was how they survived.
Let me ask you real quick. What about the cops?
So the cops were very interesting. I have one cool cop story, but they drove around and they got to know who I was and why. But this one time I was, there's a car on the side and I was on the sidewalk leaning in, talking to whoever it was. And a patrol car went by and said, "All faggots go home," over the intercom.
Ooh.
And I popped up and he saw me. And he knew who I was, because I told you I worked at Gold's Gym, and I knew that's where all the law enforcement guys worked out, all the lawyers, all the council people, all the teachers, all the professionals in the community. That was the main gymnasium. That was it. That's what we had. And that's where I really socialized in terms of knowing,
right,
the professional community.
Who's who.
Right, the who's who community. And so he was like, "Oh, damn." And I got his patrol car number, and I told Marty, the next day, patrol car number, whatever it was, drove by, and, he said, "All faggots go home." And so Marty and I went and spoke to, I think it was Will Anarino was the chief of police at the time, and the liaison there, that we can't have this. We can't have police acting like that or saying things like that. And that officer came to the wing cap staff meeting that week and apologized.
Oh, nice.
To us, and said that he was just teasing. He understood it was a bad thing. He's here to support and protect everybody, including anybody out there in the middle of the night. And he was very sorry for what he said.
Wow.
So we always had a really good relationship with the police. Even when we got to doing, Marty and I started what we called the Needle Exchange Program of Asheville back in 1994, which I know has been very controversial, in some people's minds, but we provided access to sterile injection equipment for those people who needed it, for whether it was insulin, drugs, steroids, hormones, or vitamins. We never saw it as a legal issue or a moral issue. Right. It was about public health, that nobody should ever have to share a needle behind anybody. So that started back then too. And then crack and all that was going on in the streets. And I remember giving so here's kind of a silly story. We worked, the guys were in the Grove Arcade area, but down on Cox Avenue, that's where all the girls strolled. Okay. And so it's COXE though. But, there were girls that were working down there, and they kind of, every once in a while we'd cross paths. But as I was walking through town, I walked a lot more through town. I'd park somewhere and just walk through the streets and meet people who were living in the streets at night and working the streets by night. And I remember giving a condom to a pregnant woman out on the street selling her body because she was using crack, pregnant. And I thought, oh, I feel just awful about this. But then I thought, well, she's using condoms, so okay, that sort of thing. Yeah. She's trying to make the money for whatever she was. We have projects like a program like CARA, C-A-R-A at Mayheck, which is one of our local healthcare providers. Mm-hmm. And they work with pregnant women who are still using alcohol and drugs. So we've evolved here in Asheville. And the Grove Arcade finally became what it is now, is no longer the federal building. So all of that street outreach kind of stuff really died down, and all the hustlers, that hustler community is gone. You can't get a good hand job for, a drink or two anymore. You
Not even on Grindr.
Right, kind of thing. So that whole environment, that whole culture is just not as easy to find like it was. But I remember those guys out there, and some of them I see nowadays, if they've survived. Some of them went to prison, some of them, got strung out and died, but others had families. And I would see them like at festivals downtown or in the mall or at a grocery store, and our eyes will catch. And I'll be like, wow, man, it's good to see you. And he says back to me, just, by the eyes, good to see you too. Don't say anything. This is my wife. These are my 2 children.
Right.
But I know that history. We have that history. And I'd give them a couple dollars, and they never let anything happen to my pickup truck. Nobody ever, tried to steal anything or jack me up, or, we had really good relationships like that.
That's beautiful, because that's what it takes, is trust.
To see one another's humanity. Yes. He's out there, giving blowjobs or hand jobs or whatever to survive for whatever experiences he'd had. I don't know. Right. I kind of teasingly say, the priest never wanted to fuck me, or, the neighbor never wanted to do it to me, and I never got abused. Why not? Was I just that nerdy little kid nobody wanted, or I was too much of a queer that they were like, he'll tell somebody, or, he'll share this with somebody instead of scaring me. But I think that sometimes they were the boys that things happened to.
Yeah.
That they couldn't tell anybody. They were hurt by it in ways that were deeply rooted.
Yes. Yes. So how have you seen over the years of doing street outreach, but also just outreach into the bars, the gay bars, how has the community changed in general? And then specifically, how's it changed just in Asheville?
Well, I got the name The Rubber Man from a minister out on the cage. He came to me one night with an orange hat, and he had glued all the different color condoms across the top, and it wrote on top of that, The Rubber Man. So that's how I got my name, The Rubber Man, in the first place. Some people call me the Condom Fairy, or the, whatever they call me is fine. Just
as long as they call me.
Right, just call me. So it was different back then. First of all, I think there was a lot more disposable income, and people drank and partied a little bit differently and harder, I think. We could smoke cigarettes inside. Yeah. You didn't have to smoke outside. And people were a little bit more social. You didn't have cell phones, so you couldn't look up Grindr or Sniffies or whatever else you want to look up. Couldn't connect that way. You had to really go to a bar. And some people, like I said, they came out of the woodwork. They sneaked around, and they might have driven around. And we had 4 or 5 bars back then, so you could drive around a good couple of blocks and maybe find a hustler or not. Maybe you'd go in and have a drink. Maybe you wouldn't. But there were connections. And there's still some of that connection, like on the Blue Ridge Parkway. It was very dangerous. I mean, that was federal property, still is. But, there were places that people met, and there were a couple of public bathrooms. It makes us sometimes sound like scoundrels or whatever. But that's how hidden we had to be sometimes.
Exactly.
And so if you weren't going to accept us at any other restaurant or bar or whatever, and we couldn't hold hands and we couldn't show our love, we found it other ways. And so tragedy or not, thrill or not, beauty or not, this is what it was. Right. And sometimes still is, and around the world too. So, it's certainly places around the world that's so very dangerous still to be a gay man and a lesbian or a trans person. Anyway, so the things have changed. The crowds have changed. People have come and gone. Those people that I remember partying, with or whatever in those days, maybe have gotten out of the scene, maybe have died too. I'm just saying, if I'm now 59 and they were at that time 40 and 50 and 60, now they're 70, 80 and 90 or not, or are they gone? Right. So a lot of that's gone. And the bar owners have changed.
True.
The fact that we don't necessarily have to have a single place for the gay community to go, whether men's or women's, kind of bars. We're kind of everywhere now. We're like tin cans. You can find us everywhere, kind of thing. And more being accepted. So I can go to a variety of different places and be with a partner and feel okay about it and be as gay as I want to be, or walk down the street with my hand held, with my partner's hand. And
real quick, your partner, how does he feel about all that you do? I mean, because you are in some risky behavior environments sometimes with what you do with harm reduction and everything. Mm-hmm. And how does he let you go out at night?
Let me go out, huh? So his name is Paul Ahrens. he was Marty's partner for 9 years. So I knew him back in the 90s. Marty and he would take me on trips. We went to international AIDS conferences and other training conferences, and we traveled really well together. I was always the third spoke and had to go have my breakfast in the morning while they finished doing whatever they were doing. And then I could come back and do my ablutions. But so they traveled. I knew him really well. He was a friend of mine. And when Marty died in 2001 of AIDS-related causes, Paul and I mourned his death that year. Marty's culture, he was from the Oglala Lakota Sioux tribe in South Dakota, Pine Ridge Indian Reservation. And when he died, his mother and his culture was to mourn for a year while she prepared to have this big giveaway dinner. So Marty wanted to be buried here. He wanted his remains. He was cremated. And his remains are in the Garth at All Souls Episcopal Cathedral here in Biltmore Village. His mother fought him on that. She wanted his body repatriated to the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation with the rest of the family and all of that. But he wanted to be here. So she came back a year later and had this great giveaway party and blankets, the traditional star quilts and other things that she had big dinner for, friends and gave all these blankets to people who had been in part of Marty's life that she appreciated. So a year later, actually during that year, Paul and I met once a month to make Marty's AIDS memorial quilt. Mm-hmm. So if you were to look up Marty Prairie, Prairie, like Little House on the Prairie, he always said, his quilt panel is in the Names Project AIDS Memorial,
Did we just have it here?
We did. Yeah. And it was here in December for World AIDS Day, which is December 1st every year. And so that year, Paul and I mourned Marty and created this quilt. About a year later, my sister was getting married, and Paul, he lives in Tallahassee, always has all the years I've known him and still does. So we have this long-distance relationship, a 7-hour drive each month. But my sister was going to be married in Philadelphia, and Paul spent some of his youth in Philadelphia and then in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So I asked him if he wanted to go. We were friends. I said, "You want to go to my sister's wedding? It's something different. You could visit your friends or whatever." And because I think there was romance in the air, it was a wedding. That's where we first kissed and kind of started from there. And was that okay? Is that a bad thing? Is that okay, or not? And we really struggled with it.
I'm sure.
And kind of talked to Marty's mom and dad about it, and they were okay, and they accepted that and accepted us and brought us into the family a little bit closer and that kind of thing. So that's how we started, Paul and I. But so to answer your question, he already knew that was the work that I did. I had already been doing all of that work. And the fact that Marty and I started the needle exchange program, people need needles all times of day and night. So for years, until it became legalized here in North Carolina, until the Western North Carolina AIDS Project actually created a department, a harm reduction department, where they are open now, 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, so 40 hours a week, you still have people at night who couldn't make it during those hours. Right. And so for years and years, it took 25 years for it to become legalized here in the state of North Carolina. I couldn't believe that, but it was. But people would call at 1 or 2 or 3 in the morning. Hey, we're partying at this hotel, or we're way out in somewhere. Can you, is there any way you could bring us some needles? And I'm like, can you wait until the morning? It's 3 o'clock in the morning, right? But we really could use some needles. So you get up and you go. Right. And there was no GPS. Where are you? Oh. You're down the road, go down out to Leicester, down around, you'll see a bend. There's a store there, turn right, keep going about somewhere. You'll see a, trailer park or whatever. My car is the red one on the left, that kind of direction. Wow. And I would get there. Today, Butch, I still run into people who say, aren't you the guy, look, I'm gray and wrinkly now. Aren't you the guy that used to do the needles? Did you bring me needles out in blah, 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 somewhere, Hendersonville or, wherever it was? I'm like, I probably was that guy. You saved my life, they'll say. Had you not, we would have used somebody else's needles. I probably would have had HIV. I would have had hepatitis and that kind of thing. So those kind of stories, when you ask what keeps me going, I'm telling you, the enrichment and the fulfillment of life comes by stories like that, experiences that I have, why I can, how I can, because I can. And so whether Paul, I don't think he's fearful. I'm sure he worries, in a sense, what are you doing? Is it going to be okay? But I don't sense that. It's not that I'm naive to fearing what can be dangerous, but I don't have that fear of another human being. I have felt fear, and I understand anger, and I understand danger. I do. If you're inherently able to, empathize, I can understand. Right. But I have to say that I have not been put in a situation that was that scary or dangerous, as far out as it was, as whatever drugs people were doing, because they were grateful. People were grateful to have a needle and some alcohol swabs and a tourniquet and a sharps container at 3:00 in the morning.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that, I think, again, like with the hustlers, you give them a couple of dollars and they watch my car and they never let anybody beat me up and all that kind of stuff. I was part of that community. So even though I'm not a needle user, I've smoked some weed. I did coke once or twice in my life. I've done a few pills like when I was in high school. I'm not that guy.
And you're not a drinker.
I stopped that in 1995. Marty was. He was a big, heavy, drug-using, drinking, everything, and he found his sobriety and recovery here in the mountains of Western North Carolina. Lived, as he put it, clean and sober for the last 15 years of his life. And I felt like it was insulting to smell like alcohol around him. And in 1995, I stopped drinking alcohol. Now, I will admit, and people will tell you, Trisha will tell you, because she went to college with me. She has seen me. I really believe that I'm allergic to alcohol. That's the truth. Oh. Because I could have 2 drinks and I would throw up and pass out on your floor and just be, out on the floor right here. If I had 2 drinks with you,
but not a good day.
Right. and then violently sick, like for days. I would be, vomiting for days. And I think around that time was when I went to try and keep up with my friend Denny T in Dayton, Ohio. And I tried to keep up with his drinking. Yeah, Denny T, I'm talking about you. Wes, you too. But I got so sick that I, first of all, could not drive back to Asheville for 3 days. And his mother had to help bathe me. She had to get me off of the floor of the bathroom to help bathe me as an adult. And I just said, I really need to stop.
Yeah.
I'd be dead or have DUI or something. But so that's how I stopped drinking. So I'm a nerd. That's what I'm saying. Everybody's like, come on, have a drink. I want to see you drink. No, you don't. No, you don't.
I always know whenever you walk into the bar,
you smell
there's
coffee.
Always a pot of coffee going.
Right, you can smell the coffee.
Because Michael's going to be here at a certain time, so we need to have the coffee ready for him.
Right, and I'll drink that. And one of the greater bartenders over at Scandals, his name was Scotty. You might know him. He used to make me a juicy juice.
A juicy juice?
Yeah, and you'll have to ask him. I don't know what he put in it, but it was the best damn drink. And I would come in and he'd make me a juicy juice. And so for years, I would come in, I'd say, juicy juice. And if somebody was standing next to me, they'd be like, what's that? I'm like, I don't know. You'd have to ask the bartender, but it was the best drink ever. I wasn't sure what he dipped in there. Sometimes I was, it tasted so good. Poor thing. He put up with a lot of bullshit, I'm sure.
I'm sure. And still does, probably.
Yes.
We're going to wrap it up here. And I'd love for you to share some thoughts about, what do you say to the youth, the gay youth of our Western North Carolina region, really, because that's what we're focused on right here is Western North Carolina and the beauty and the diversity of this community. What would you say to our young folk?
Carry us forward. You are the next generation. Take us where you need us to go. I'll do the best I can to support you. Be confident. Be happy that you're in this time period, as hard as it may be, the struggles that come your way. Lean on us. If we can be there to be supportive, I think that you'll find support. I know when you look at me and see this, gray-headed, wrinkly guy, you probably think,
you don't have any wrinkles. I'm just telling you.
But as we age, I think, you find out that you too will be here if you can survive it. Yeah. So do what you can to survive, be strong, read, be smart, be philanthropic, give back, give. Because when you give, you get.
Exactly.
And don't give to get, give.
Give to give.
give to give. And it comes back to you. And participate. Find ways of participating in the community. There are so many things and so many needs. So whether that is, if you're not philanthropic by money, then give of your time, of your hands. Help your neighbor, seriously, like your neighbor who needs her lawn mowed,
Right.
or something raked or whatever, or scrape some snow, wash a car. Find those people in your community and do something for nature. Feed the birds, or take some time and look at the trees and find the beauty around you. No matter where you are, there's something beautiful in every single day. If you can't find one beautiful good thing in every day, you're missing out on life. Live life. And find something positive every single day, and give nobody your power. Always have your power. Give nobody your power. Don't abuse your power, but don't give anybody your power. Those are some of the things I would say to youth, and I look forward to seeing where you take us.
Beautiful. Give me your hand. I find beauty in you.
Thanks, Butch.
Every time I see you, I light up. You're
wonderful.
a great person. You're
You
a legend
too.
in this city, and we appreciate everything that you do. Be sure and like our shows. Be sure and subscribe. Be sure and share. And we're out of here tonight. Thank you so much.
What an honor to be here with you.
What an honor to have you.
Thanks.
Thank you.